whoever did this has to be soulless. I mean, can't even be a human being.
Her face was everywhere. Instagram, magazines, modeling pages. She called herself Bad Barbie. She lived in Las Vegas, posted glam photos, wore designer clothes, and smiled like nothing could touch her. But behind the makeup and filters was a life she couldn't afford, not without help. That help came in the form of a man, Dr. Thomas Burchard, a 71-year-old child psychiatrist from California. He sent her money, paid her rent, bought her a car, more than $750,000 over the years. He wasn't just helping her, he thought he was saving her. But in March 2019, police found his body in the trunk of the very car he'd paid for, a blue Mercedes. The car was abandoned near the desert, just outside Las Vegas. His head had been smashed with a baseball bat, his body wrapped in blankets from her home. Blood soaked through everything, and the name on the car? Kelsey Turner. This wasn't an accident, it wasn't random, it was personal. What began as a relationship based on trust and money ended with silence, lies, and a murder that shocked even seasoned detectives. Pause for a moment. Think about what it means to trust someone, to give, to help, and to end up in the trunk of a car because of it. If stories like this make you stop and reflect, subscribe to the channel. We tell them the way they happened, no extras, no hype. Now, back to the story.
A California physician is found dead in Las Vegas in the trunk of a car. Dr. Thomas Kirk Burchard was found on State Route 147 near the Lake Mead recreational area back on March 7th. The 71-year-old from Salinas died from blunt force injuries to his head. 8 News Now reporter Sally Jaramillo joins us live. And Sally, you spoke with Burchard's girlfriend, and she became concerned when he didn't come home. What did she have to say?
Yes, I spoke to Judy Irv, a lifelong girlfriend to Dr. Burchard. She tells me he loved to visit Las Vegas. He came here for multiple conferences.
Dr. Thomas Burchard had spent over 4 decades helping children who couldn't help themselves. He worked in Salinas, California, a small city known more for lettuce fields than headlines. He was calm, quiet, deeply respected. To his patients, he was the gentle voice in a storm. To his colleagues, a man who had dedicated his life to healing young minds. He lived simply. No flashy cars, no social media, no scandal. But underneath the calm surface was a man with a soft heart and a weakness for helping people in trouble, especially women. Kelsey Turner was born in 1993 in Norfolk, Virginia. She was nearly 50 years younger than him. She grew up far from stability, moved from place to place, and by her early 20s had one goal: to become famous. Her beauty stood out. Blonde, slim, with a camera-ready face, she stepped into modeling quickly. Playboy, Maxim, low-budget magazine shoots and racy Instagram posts followed. She called herself Bad Barbie and built a life online filled with palm trees, pool parties, and picture-perfect smiles. But the real world didn't match the photos. Behind the filters were unpaid bills, evictions, and a constant chase to keep up an expensive image. They met sometime around 2017. No one knows exactly how, but the arrangement was clear. He sent money, a lot of it. Over time, he covered her rent, her car, her insurance, everything she needed to stay afloat. He gave without asking for much back. She accepted without slowing down. She had a young son. She had dreams. And she had a man who kept paying long after most people would have walked away. The age gap between them was striking. He was nearly 50 years her senior. But more than age, it was power that defined their relationship. He had the money. She had the image. He gave. She received. And in that space between support and survival, something toxic began to grow. To the outside world, it looked like generosity, but beneath it, the balance was off. One was clinging to fantasy, the other to control. And when those lines blurred, neither of them saw what was coming next. By the time their paths crossed online in 2017, Kelsey Turner was no stranger to fast promises and short-lived arrangements. Her modeling work had dried up, The magazine. Features were old news. Behind the filtered Instagram glow was a woman juggling late bills, eviction notices, and the quiet pressure of raising a child alone. She was still young, still beautiful, and she knew her looks could get her what she needed if she found the right man. That man was Dr. Thomas Burchard. He wasn't looking for romance. What he found in Kelsey was someone who needed help, or maybe he just wanted to feel needed again. He had done well in life, a respected child psychiatrist, a steady income, no real scandals. But there was something about her that made him say yes, again and again. First it was rent, then a car. Then her phone bill, groceries, furniture, clothes, vacations. It added up fast. By the end, he had poured somewhere between $500,000 and $750,000 into her life. He gave it freely. Some said he saw her as a project. Others thought he had fallen in love. But the truth was simpler. He was hooked. Not on her beauty, but on her chaos. And Kelsey, she kept taking. Every time the money ran low, she found a new crisis, a new reason, a new request. He wired it, mailed it, drove it across state lines. Their arrangement wasn't written in ink, but it ruled them both like a contract. Neither could escape. Back in California, Dr. Burchard's longtime fiancée, Judy Earp, watched from the sidelines. She had known him for years, loved him for longer, and saw what was happening with painful clarity. She described Kelsey as a professional manipulator. Kelsey Turner, she later said, is such a consummate liar that she could convince a fish to live on land. But it wasn't just lies. The relationship had started to curdle. Kelsey became paranoid. She started sending disturbing text messages to Dr. Burchard. Wild accusations, threats, warnings. In one message, she accused him of having child pornography on his phone. There was no evidence of it, and no one else believed it. But the damage was done. Those who knew Dr. Burchard said the threats scared him, not because they were true, but because they could ruin everything he had built. The man who had once healed children was now being emotionally blackmailed by the woman he had tried to save. And still, he kept helping her. Each time he tried to pull away, something pulled him back. Maybe guilt, maybe fear, maybe the hope that if he gave just a little more, she would finally get her life together. Maybe he didn't know how to stop, but everyone else saw what he couldn't, and by the time he did, it was too late. By early 2019, Thomas Burchard had made up his mind. The money had gone too far. The threats had become too much. The girl he once thought he could help had become someone he barely recognized. He had paid Kelsey Turner's bills, supported her, child, and funded her lifestyle for years. But now, he was done. He had one last trip to make, and then he would cut ties for good. On March 1st, 2019, he boarded a flight from California to Las Vegas. He didn't tell many people why he was going, but those close to him believed he wanted to deliver the news face to face, that the money, the help, and the relationship were over. He landed and was picked up at a local restaurant. Kelsey was waiting. They had a tense meal. And at some point, she took his phone from the table and went through it. What she saw, or claimed to see, set everything off. Witnesses later recalled that she became upset, suspicious, accusatory. Whatever had been simmering beneath the surface was starting to boil. They left the restaurant and went back to her house, a rental in Las Vegas where she lived with her new boyfriend, John Kennison, and another roommate, Diana Pena. The house sat on a quiet street, but was filled with tension the moment they walked in. That night, shouting broke out inside. Turner screamed at Dr. Burchard, accused him of ruining her life. She threatened to expose him, threatened to destroy his career, even though her earlier accusations had already shaken him. Her anger wasn't quiet, it wasn't subtle, it came loud and sharp. And in that moment, the power had shifted completely. Whatever relationship they once had, protector and protected, giver and receiver, was now gone. What remained was chaos. No one outside the home knew what was coming next, but inside, something irreversible was already unfolding. The house was quiet, but it didn't feel safe. Diana Peña had seen arguments before, but this night felt different. Something was wrong. The air inside was heavy, like it knew what was coming. Thomas Burchard had followed Kelsey Turner into this home, thinking he was going to talk, maybe settle things. But the shouting had started fast. It didn't sound like a normal fight. It sounded final. Inside the garage, the tension turned into violence. John Kennison walked in holding a baseball bat. He didn't speak. There was no warning. He raised the bat and began hitting Thomas without stopping. One hit, then another, then more. Diana Peña stood nearby. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She later said she froze. She felt like her body shut down. Instead of moving, she turned to the kitchen sink and began washing dishes, as if pretending nothing was happening could make it stop. Thomas tried to protect himself, but the hits kept coming. He was still alive when it ended, but badly hurt. He couldn't walk, he couldn't speak. Blood covered the floor. Diana begged them to take him to a hospital. She said he needed help right away, but Kelsey and John refused. There was no panic in their voices. No rush, just a quiet decision. They would not let him leave alive. The man who had once given Kelsey everything was now lying on the cold garage floor, dying slowly. No one stopped it. No one saved him, and no one ever would. Thomas Burchard was no longer breathing. His body, beaten and broken, lay cold inside the garage. There was no plan. But there was a car. They wrapped him in blankets from the house, bedding he had likely seen before. They cleaned what they could. Then together, they lifted his body and placed it in the trunk of Kelsey Turner's blue Mercedes-Benz. The same car he had helped pay for. The same car he had once used to drive her to safety. Now it was carrying him to the middle of nowhere. They drove into the Nevada desert, away from lights, away from questions. The road narrowed, the land turned dry. Somewhere near Lake Mead, they pulled over. They left the car there, engine off, trunk sealed shut. Inside were bloody gloves, the bat, and the man who had once believed he was helping. Days passed. Then a call came in to police, a report of an abandoned car just off the road. On March 7, 2019, officers arrived and opened the trunk. What they found stopped them cold. The body was wrapped in blankets, placed with care, but without mercy. Blood was everywhere. The signs of violence were clear, and the name on the car's registration pointed them straight to Kelsey Turner. The investigation began quickly. Police collected fingerprints, traced phone activity, and studied cell tower data. Every digital trail led in one direction. They tracked the suspects across state lines, all the way to Stockton, California. It didn't take long to find them. By the time police caught up with them in Stockton, the case was already clear. Kelsey Turner and John Kennison were both arrested. Diana Peña, the quiet roommate who had watched it all unfold, was taken in too. The evidence was stacked high. Fingerprints, GPS data, phone records, and the car itself. Turner and Kennison were charged with murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Peña was charged as an accessory after the fact. As the months passed, the courtroom became the place where truth, silence, and self-preservation collided. John Kennison went first. In mid-2022, he pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and conspiracy. He didn't fight the facts. He didn't deny what he had done. He accepted what was coming. Kelsey Turner took a different path. On November 9, 2022, she entered an Alford plea, a legal move that allowed her to maintain her innocence while accepting that prosecutors had enough evidence to convict her. She did not admit guilt, but she did not walk free. Sentencing came in January 2023. Turner was given 10 to 25 years in a Nevada state prison. Not life, but not short. Kennison received 18 to 45 years, and Pena, the one who stayed silent, the one who stood still as the crime happened, she was given probation. 3 people walked into a house that night. Only one didn't leave alive, but all of them were changed forever. After the sentencing, the courtroom emptied. The headlines began to fade, but for those left behind, the story didn't end. Judy Earp, Dr. Burchard's longtime partner, had watched the entire case unfold from the front row. She had spent years by his side, and now she was left with silence and grief. When asked about Kelsey Turner, her words were sharp and certain. "I think Kelsey Turner is a danger to society," she said. To Earp, this wasn't a story about jealousy or mistakes. It was about manipulation, about trust broken beyond repair, about a man who gave too much and paid the price with his life. In Salinas, Dr. Thomas Burchard's death shocked the people who knew him best. His patients, former co-workers and students spoke of a kind man, a quiet man, a man who spent his life helping children and never asked for anything in return. Now he would be remembered not for his work, but for how his life ended. Beaten, in a garage, left in a car, abandoned in the desert. The case made headlines across the country. ABC's 2020 dedicated an episode to it. Oxygen Snapped featured it in full detail. People, Newsweek, Law and Crime, and other outlets dug into the layers. The sugar daddy dynamic, the money trail, the model murder. They called it a story about a meal ticket gone wrong. But it was bigger than that. It was about power. A kind one person holds when they give, and the kind another uses when they take. It was about what happens when beauty is used like currency, and kindness becomes weakness. And it was about how sometimes love and danger come dressed in the same clothes. In the end, this wasn't just a murder story. It was a warning, quiet, brutal, and unforgettable. What began with a smile ended in silence. Kelsey Turner once sold the image of a perfect life. The clothes, the filters, the light behind every photo. But it wasn't real. Behind the scenes was a woman who needed money, attention, and control. Thomas Burchard gave all 3, and it cost him everything. This was never just a story about beauty and money. It was about how far people go when they feel owed. About what happens when someone gives too much and the other never learns to stop taking. About a man whose kindness turned into a trap, manipulation, obsession, power. These weren't headlines. They were choices, and in the end, one person was dead, and 3 others were locked behind the truth they tried to hide. John Kennison will spend nearly half his life in prison. Kelsey Turner could be eligible for parole as early as 2029, depending on how the system moves. Appeals may still come. Time will keep unfolding, but some damage cannot be undone. Thomas Burchard's name now lives in court documents, crime shows, and cautionary stories. But before any of that, he was just a man trying to help someone he thought needed saving. He didn't know that some relationships come with a cost, and some, like this one, have a price no one should ever have to pay.